Lori here. I'm here today to do my part one of my October reading wrap up. I have read about 10 books. When I originally was sitting down to film this video, I don't think I loved a lot of the books that I read, but looking back, it's just the last couple of books I read weren't my favorites, and just been struggling finding a creepy and eerie book to dive into in recent reads, but hopefully that will change the second half of the month. So let's get into it. The first book that I finished is not eerie and not creepy, but I am on a blog tour for it, so let's chat about it. And that is Daughter of the Deep by Rick Riordan. This is his new standalone novel that has nothing to do with mythology, which I think was a really unique twist. This is a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea retelling, and it basically follows this girl named Anna, and she goes to a school that is very connected to scientific technology. There's a school that has houses. It's very reminiscent of Harry Potter in that way, but that's sort of when the similarities end. But when they're on a trip, something goes horribly wrong, and they are the last remaining people in the school, and it starts to uncover that their school is in a all-out war with another school, and secrets and lies start to uncover as they try to figure out not only to save themselves, but also to save the world. It is a great read. I devoured this book. It has Rick Riordan's classic wit and funny style. It was a book that I flew through. It was so nice to read a book by this author again because it's been a bit. And I just loved how he crafted a story. I really always have loved his books. This was definitely a departure because it wasn't reliant on any mythology, but it was reliant on a classic retelling. I've never read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but I liked how the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea story was almost treated like a myth, and I think Rick Riordan does that super well. I wound up giving this one 4 stars for review. I am on a blog tour, so please check out my review on my blog. My blog is always linked below. I think it's coming out at the end of the month, but I really like this. I wound up giving it 4 stars for review. And the next book that I wound up picking up was another book that really wasn't eerie and creepy, but I'm also on a different blog tour for this one. And this one is The Fowl Twins Deny All Charges. The second book in the Fowl Twins series by Ian Colfer, and I have to admit I like this book a little bit more than the first one. I think I'm definitely more a proponent of the original Artemis Fowl series, but I do like the dynamics between the twins in this series. They're so vastly different. I like the stories that are being untold. I just wish, in the first in the first Fowl series, I felt so connected to the fairies in those books. These books are less connected to, the fairy world, and the fairies sort of come in at the very end of the story and sort of save the day. So I hope in future books that the fairies become a little bit more engaged. But I liked it. I wound up giving it 3 stars. It was a really, really quick listen, and I actually have to listen to the third one because I'm on a blog tour for that one. So I'll probably listen to that in early November. A lot of the publishing dates of the books I was supposed to read got pushed, so that was one that got pushed. But I was reading this one because at the time I was reading this, I was like, oh, the blog tour's at the end of October, and then it wasn't. So yes. But I wound up giving this one 3 stars for review, and I liked it, and I'm excited to read the third book hopefully soon and be able to review it for you all. And the next book that I wound up reading was the first book that sort of took me back to my eerie and creepy vibes. The first one, this one I actually read during New York City Comic Con, and that is The X-Hex by Erin Sterling. I like this book. I thought this book was so fun. It reminded me sort of Stars Hollow meets Practical Magic. But it really did remind me a lot of Stars Hollow. So you basically follow this girl named Vivian, and 9 years ago she wound up hexing her ex after he basically dumped her in really, really mean circumstances. But 9 years later, when Reese returns back to town, he is cursed. Not only is he cursed, the whole town is cursed, and it is a delight. It's so fun. I devoured it. I will say I like the relationship in the here and now. I thought that was super fun, but you don't really get their relationship in the past. You get instances. There wasn't really flashbacks or anything, and that's what I think would have made this book even more special because I felt like you just sort of, you knew that they were together, but you didn't know why. So that was a part that was missing from. I don't know if this is necessarily going to be a series or what, but it was a book that I really liked and it just put a smile on my face. The romance was fun, it made me laugh out loud, and it reminded me of Gilmore Girls, but just with magic. So I would wind up giving this one like 3.75 stars for review. And if you're looking for sort of a witchy romance, I would recommend you pick this one up. And then the next book that I wound up reading was another book that I read mostly during New York City Comic Con. And that is, and this is also a new acquisition, and that is All These Bodies by Kendra Blake. My friend actually gifted this to me at New York City Comic Con. But this is a book, and I've read a couple of books this month that had male leads, and I rarely ever do that. Like, it is, I would say, 80% of my books I read have female-led characters, but this was a male one. This is also a historical fiction novel. It's set in 1958, and it's a male lead. And he, so I'll read you guys the back. The summer of 1958, a series of gruesome murders sweeps the Midwest. Victims drained entirely of blood. A 15-year-old girl is arrested, and sometimes the truth is harder to believe as it is to find. This book was a fast-paced story. I really liked it. I loved Michael as the main character. It also had a very, interesting structure because Michael's telling you the story from the present. So he's, looking back and he's giving you more information. I like that Michael was the lead. I think Kendra Blake could have easily had this story be told from Maria's, I think her name is Maria's point of view. The woman who was convicted of these murders. It would have been very, very easy to put it from her point of view, but I actually loved Michael as a character. I thought he was great. I thought the paranormal potentiality was really interesting and fascinating, and I like how it was still left really open-ending. The ending was a little bit too open-ended for me, and I wish it was a little bit more clarified, but again, this is an arc, so I don't know if that was changed. Sometimes things change in arcs. I would like to maybe read the last couple of chapters if I ever get my hands on a business copy. But I liked it. I wound up giving it 4 stars and really enjoyed Kendra Blake a lot. This book was really, really fun. This was a new one, so it motivated me to go back and read her backlist, which I did later in this little time period. And then the next book that I picked up was Witch Please by Anne Aguirre. Here is a photo. Saw her at New York City Comic Con as well, which was not the plan, but it was super fun. This book is another one that I really liked. It was very sex heavy, a little bit more than I was necessarily expecting, but it was really, really fun. If I had to choose, I think the X-Hex is probably my favorite, but I really did like the romance in this, especially the male lead. I like that we got both of their point of views. I like that it was a romance that totally in the present. And it was just fun. It was a really, really fun romance. I liked that it was a more modern day witch. And one was a technopath and she could use her powers to fix things. And then the male lead was a baker and their paths wind up crossing. It was so fun. I wound up giving this one 3 stars. It is very, very sex heavy. I will say that. But I really did like it. This one will be a companion book because the next one that's coming out is following her cousin. I'll definitely be checking that book out, but just go in knowing it is very, very sex heavy, but it was a very, very fun and engaging read. And the next book that I wound up reading is probably the last book I'm going to chat about in this video. I didn't realize that I had so few books, so this will be a shorter review. But the last book I'm going to talk about in this wrap up will be much shorter than my past wrap ups just because I didn't read a lot of things, is The Witch Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins, which is the same author as the X-Hex, but a totally different genre. I had some mixed feelings about this book, and it had nothing to do with the pacing. I thought the story was really interesting. It was a Jane Eyre retelling. It was engaging. It was a really, really quick listen, but I didn't like any of the characters, and that was sort of the crux, because the story was really fun. It was a quick paced read, but I didn't like any of the characters, none of them. There was not even one redeeming person in the story. So for me, it was a fast paced adventure read, but that was really it. It was a thriller. It was gothic. I like that element to it. I like that it was like a lower class person trying to get encrusted in this richer world. That was fun, but the characters just did not like capture me like at all. But I think that was sort of the point that Rachel Hawkins was trying to make with this read. Like, I think that was the point, but I just really struggled to love it as much as like other people did. I liked it. It just was not my favorite thriller. I don't really read a lot of adult thrillers, and I think that's mostly the reason why, because I struggle with really unlikable characters. You do come across them in YA. I'm not saying that you don't, but I do spy them a lot more in adult thrillers. So that is why this book is a little bit on the lower side. I only gave it 3 stars, but I did like it. It just wasn't my favorite read. If I had to pick favorites, I would definitely say Daughter of the Deep was my favorite. And also All These Bodies. Those were my 2 favorite. And if I had to pick least favorite, definitely The Foul Twins and maybe The Wife Upstairs if I had to pick. But those were just the books I listened to. So yeah, so let me know in the comments what are some books you have read recently, and I'll talk to you for my second half of my wrap up in early November. Bye, friends.